Hello, and welcome back to the Nourish with Purpose podcast. I hope you're having a great Wednesday or whenever you're listening to today's episode. It's Bailey. If you're new here, I'm a holistic health and nutrition focused coach who really has just such a passion for helping women both reduce inflammation and heal their relationship with food. Together, I just feel like that is the most perfect combination because there's so much internal work that has to happen before you maybe see the external result that you're looking for, which is really fitting for today's episode because we are talking about how your body changes. So understanding why this happens, how your cycle affects your appearance, and how you can support your body throughout all stages of life. I actually was spending some time creating an outline for today's episode, and I was like, you know what? We're just going to go with it. We're going to go with the flow. We're going to talk about a spectrum of things, but really talking mostly about that appearance. And I just feel like that's something that's come up so frequently for me over the years, is just that like overanalyzation of your body. Maybe even noticing like, well, my body felt this way during this week, and then the next week when I had my period, I didn't feel so great and I looked bloated and puffy. And there's a reason that all of that is happening. And so we're going to touch on that today, because even if you are maybe premenopausal, throughout menopause, or post-menopausal, there's also just ways that in general we can support our body. So even if you're no longer getting your period, or if you're missing your period, we're going to talk on that too. But just know there's still going to be things for you to be able to apply into your day-to-day life. Before we get into that though, a couple things. First, if you haven't, I would just love if you would leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcast. Again, this just helps get the podcast into more ears and more people listening. Send this episode to a friend. And then if you are all in for a giveaway, then I have one for you. On July 21st, I'll be drawing for a giveaway for a $100 gift card to the grocery store of your choice. I want to buy your groceries. All you need to do is submit a review on Apple Podcasts and screenshot it, send it my way, and I'll get you entered. Again, $100 towards your groceries. But you do have to obviously submit that and send it my way so I know who wrote the review. But besides that, we're going to catch up on a little bit more personal things. So what's going on in my life recently? This last week honestly felt very, very long. I feel like so yesterday, I'm recording this on Tuesday as usual, but yesterday was Monday, of course, and I just felt like such a long time since it was Friday, which hopefully you got to enjoy a nice long weekend for Memorial Day and spend time with family and friends and get outside. I was in a wedding this weekend, so it was activities Saturday, Sunday, and then we were in Omaha until about Monday mid-morning. I had a call and then we came home, but really didn't spend a lot of time actually at home this weekend, which is fine. It was filled with other great things. When we got home though, later, last night, Luna, our dog, just started limping, and we're like, oh my gosh, did she break her leg? So I was feeling around and her leg was shaking. I'm like, oh my gosh, do we take her to the vet? I don't know. I'm like, this is kind of reflecting too when you have kids. It's okay, if they're limping, do you take them to the hospital right away? Do you give it some time? So we gave it some time, and Nate took her earlier this morning, and turns out there's nothing wrong with her. They gave her some anti-inflammatory medication, so she has to take that for the next 2 weeks, but they felt around and did a whole checkup, and there was nothing noticeably wrong with her. So we're like, was she just faking it because she was mad at us for leaving her all weekend or something? Because yeah, seriously, so dramatic, limping and whimpering. And I'm like, I don't know if you're just playing this up or if there's actually something wrong with you. But anyway, we are hoping that she's on the mend. The funny thing is when she goes outside, she runs around like usual. And then when she gets in the house, she starts limping. So we don't really know what's going on, but you know what? At least she's fine. We did get it checked out. She's doing well. But really, outside of that, I feel like there's not a lot that's been going on. Just a couple things. Of course, the wedding was great to see friends and other family and really just get to relax. Something I don't talk a lot about on here is alcohol and my relationship with alcohol. I don't know. I feel like that's just a very personal thing to me. And I feel like I share a lot about everything else in my life. And that's just one I don't really ever touch on. But I did want to mention how refreshing it is to be able to be in a social setting and not need or want alcohol to feel like you have to have fun. Like, I don't know, at the wedding, I was dancing around, having so much fun, and I had had one glass of champagne the whole evening. And it was just a good realization for me to be like, you know what? Like, you don't even need alcohol. I think in college, maybe more specifically, is where it's like, oh, well, if we're going to go out and have fun, like there's always alcohol present. At least that's how it was for me. I know that's not everybody's situation, but traditional college experience, I think that's often what occurs. And it was just really comfortable to not drink. And I felt so good waking up on Monday. I knew I had a discovery call with a client or potential client. And so I wanted to just feel good. And it's like so much of my life, I live in alignment with my values and my values around food and how you can heal your body. And I feel like if I'm not practicing what I preach, like that's just feels so honestly wrong to do. You know, like if you go to the doctor and the nurse comes in and doesn't look very healthy or very well kept, and then the doctor comes in and doesn't really know anything about how to nourish their body or exercise, for me, that's an alarming sign. And that's not to say we should ever judge people based off of like external appearance, because there could be so much more to the story. But I feel like there are people in the medical system that you get very comfortable with, and then you start looking at their lifestyle, and it really does not align with what they tell you to do when you go in for an appointment or a checkup. And so I guess that's just where I really want to be different in that case, or in that sense of actually living out a life that other people would see and be like, oh yeah, she really is implementing what she tells me to do on our coaching calls. And so I don't know, that's all just to say, like, not that you can't drink or have fun or have a good relationship with alcohol, but for me, I've just realized my life and honestly, my experiences are so much better when I don't have it. And I think there's maybe a time and place for anyone or everyone to add that into their lifestyle, but for me, I've just really have felt just this like inner, I don't know, conflict with it, because I really don't want to, but it's often pushed, and people don't care if you drink or not typically in different environments. But there is sometimes just like well, okay, are they, you know, like when you talk to somebody, it's like, are they even going to remember this conversation? Like, I just never want to be that person. I really want to have intentional conversations. And I've realized when I socialize, it's just best if that's not present. And that was very long-winded, but I wanted to just kind of talk and reflect on that, because I've just really been feeling that way. And so maybe if you've been feeling like alcohol just doesn't really align with your lifestyle or with what you maybe really believe to your core, or that you feel like has been placed on your heart, like it's totally okay to step away from that and to not participate, and just kind of make that decision, obviously, for yourself without feeling any guilt or overwhelm when the people around you are. So, okay, outside of that, we're going to jump into how I'm nourishing my mind, body, and spirit. How I'm nourishing my body. Oof, this is a hard one, because I feel like with food, I just have not been making the best meals. And this doesn't mean that they've been bad meals. And I probably said this last week and it just hasn't even changed. But I just go into the kitchen and I feel very uninspired. I walk in there and there's just no inspiration. There's a lack of desire to even want to be cooking, which is so abnormal for me, because it's honestly the best place for me, and I feel the most comfortable when I'm cooking, and I love to be able to help support other people's health by cooking food for them. But I've just felt no inspiration to do that. And honestly, at this point, food has felt very repulsive, and that doesn't mean I haven't still been eating, because that is huge for me, is to be eating those 3 or more meals a day. But when I think about certain foods and making those and eating them, like I could almost gag. And no, I'm not pregnant. If any of you are assuming that, it's not the case. I truly just, food in the summer when you're outside and you're sweaty and you're just active, it just sounds terrible. It doesn't sound good to me. And so finding food that actually sounds good has been really, really hard to do. And so that is an area where I know I've been neglecting my body, not even in the sense that I've been eating bad food. I just haven't been feeling connected to the food I'm eating and just eating because I know I need the calories, not necessarily because I'm enjoying the whole experience. And I'm very all about making mealtime an experience. And so it just feels weird to not have really a desire to do that. So in an area that I do feel like I'm doing really well with when it comes to moving my body is adding in variety with how I move my body. And I think in the past, I thought that exercise needed to look like going to the gym and doing your incline walk and then lifting weights and then cooling it down with abs, or just that type of sequence. And I've been loving leading exercise classes. I lead 3 classes on Mondays and Wednesdays, which is a lot. But then even like today, I went out for a 2-mile run and then I just did a lower body standing workout. And it just felt very refreshing to just be dripping in sweat. And I just think that's something I have been craving. There's just has to be something different released when you're like dripping in sweat. And so for me, that just was like the best feeling. And I think today I'm kind of entering this week thinking about how I can move my body in a way that is still low impact, still feels comfortable and good, but makes me just sweat, because that is just something I've lacked. The workouts I lead are hard, but I like to be in a hot room. I like to be dripping in sweat. Like that makes me feel really, really good. But when you're working out with other people, you don't want anybody to pass out. So you're a lot more aware of like the temperature of the room or how much jumping you're doing. But being able to just find that passion again independently has been refreshing, because there's definitely over the last month and a half, there had been honestly just not a lot of passion or desire to move my body, even though it's something I continue to stay pretty consistent with. It doesn't mean it's always enjoyable, which is where that discipline has to come in, and finding that discipline so that even though it's not something you truly want to do, you still are honestly forcing yourself. And I don't often say like you need to force yourself to do something if you don't feel up for it. But when it comes to activities that you know are going to support your body, our mind gets in the way so often when our body is more than capable. And so we have to find that discipline. And I talked about that a lot on that 2 weeks ago, the episode about moving your body and how you have to find that discipline, because that's self-respect. And so just remembering that, and even just jotting down what my non-negotiables are for the day when it comes to my own health and my own body. And for you, I would really kind of recommend that you would do that, is like, what are my non-negotiables for today? Or this week, or in general, right? My non-negotiables are I'm going to drink this amount of water, and I'm going to move my body at least in some form. I'm going to get outside, and I'm going to eat 3 really nourishing meals. But that doesn't mean that's what your non-negotiables are. My other non-negotiable is actually Bible study, which I always talk about when I say how I'm nourishing my spirit. So of course, that would be how I'm nourishing my spirit. I always do the Bible study, and then I read 1 chapter of the Bible. So then wrapping this all up with how I'm nourishing my spirit. And I really think this has to do with connecting with other people. I am really trying to find people to get coffee with, or just to do a podcast interview with, or meet and just go for a walk, because I've realized how important and valuable that is. Not just for my own personal development. I do love to do that. I'm very much an introvert. I'm not an extrovert. Reaching out to people is very uncomfortable, but I know how much value I get out of it. And I'm thinking of a very specific experience this last week where I got coffee with a fellow business coach, and I just felt so encouraged leaving that conversation. I didn't feel like I was doing everything wrong like I typically do. And I guess I finally got feedback that I was on the right path, and that I was doing things right, and that I was capable of what I was doing, and honestly encouraged to think much larger scale. And that was very refreshing for my spirit. And I felt like it was a breath of fresh air. Like I was giddy last week and Nate was like, I'm just not on your level right now. But I was just giddy. And I'm like, well, it's because I don't ever have people telling me that I'm doing a good job. Like for him, he was even saying he'll have his boss tell him like, oh yeah, you completed that project. Like you're already working ahead. You're doing awesome. I had to make like very few modifications on the document. He's an accountant. So that was kind of in his lingo, I suppose. And so he gets that encouragement of like, he's doing enough, constant confirmation and affirmation that he's doing enough. Well, with me, I don't get that feedback. And so I have to regulate that and be content on my own and tell myself when I'm doing enough, even if it doesn't feel like it. And so it was refreshing to be able to kind of like put that all out on the table and then have her be like, no, you were called to do this. Like this is something you are more than capable of doing. How you run your business right now, there's some tweaks that you could make, of course, and growth strategies that you could add in, but really when it comes down to it, like you are more than capable of what your end goal is. We just need to get some things in place so you can have that like narrow focus or that honed in focus on what that is. And so really thinking about kind of even the next 2 years in a whole versus thinking about just this month. Because I think we can get so focused on obsessing over this month, right? Okay, it's May. I need to get X amount of clients. I need to make X amount of money, or I need to get promoted in my job. I need to meet with this many friends. I need to have, just like it's exhausting when you think about all the responsibilities that you give yourself month to month. And in the moment, it can feel like you're doing nothing or you're getting nowhere. But if you have just like those monthly intentions, then okay, if I do this, if I do X, Y, and Z this month, I'm good. Like it doesn't matter what maybe superficial things I gain, right? Or financial gain. That doesn't necessarily matter as long as you're doing what you need to do to reach that end goal at the end of the next year or the next 2 years. And just that realization that businesses don't function at high capacity all the time. And they have a lot of moments of sprints and then they slow it way down to a walk. That's just kind of my own analogy. And then they'll start jogging, the pace of things will pick up, and then they'll sprint for a bit. And then that next quarter, things slow down, and then they are just working and focusing on just tweaking small things to make sure that next month they can take off in a sprint and they've got all those systems in place. And so that is just such a different way of viewing business than I have been. And so I guess that was a long way of saying just meeting with people to talk about that and get very granular on what I want things to look like. That just like left me feeling so good, feeling so inspired to continue going because I finally had that affirmation that I was doing enough. And although, yes, I should really be able to find that and feel that on my own and feel that internally, I just don't. And I really struggle with having that regulation of like, you're doing enough or you're not doing enough. Most often I'm doing probably way too much and maybe it's not even in the right direction. And so it's like bringing me back down to what is important. What do I need to do this month? And then at the end of the next 2 years, I'm going to be at a spot where I know I want to see growth happen. And so, yeah, that's just been refreshing. And I know that was very a long-winded catch up, but I love these and I love the catch up parts of episodes. It's just a good way, I feel like, for you to know what's going on in my life and know a little bit a little bit more about me and where I'm at mindset-wise, physically, and spiritually. All right, so now jumping into the book of today's episode, talking about your body's change. Okay, so why your body changes, how your cycle affects your appearance, and then how you can, of course, support your body throughout all stages of life. I first want to talk about my own experiences with this. I feel like this has been something that's come up to me so frequently of just my body changing. And I feel like I'll be doing everything the exact same as I always have been, but yet my body changes and my weight fluctuates, or I notice pants maybe fit differently, or they're not as comfortable as they used to be. And I really can remember back to kind of that 7th to 8th grade year. I remember when I was in 7th grade, that summer I would have gotten measured for dance costumes. And I remember I was just a chubbier kid. Once I got to 7th grade though, something happened and my body just like shed that weight. And it wouldn't have been because I started my period, because I started my period in 5th grade, which is very young. But then when I got to 7th grade, something, maybe starting sports, something about it, my body just shed kind of that baby weight. And so throughout that, I remember coming back to that. So I got those dance costumes fitted for. And then I remember I entered my 8th grade year and I started gaining weight again. And I started gaining weight in my hips and my thighs and my booty. And then I remember that next spring when I had to put those costumes on, they didn't fit anymore. And it was a very like self-conscious time. Everything was so tight. In my eyes, nothing had changed, but then in how my clothes fit, something had changed. And that was when I started to realize how much your body truly goes through stages, right? So even if you look back on your life, maybe you can think of, oh yeah, I was like very slim in that time of my life. And then maybe not necessarily even weight gain, just body composition wise, things shifted. You got boobs, your butt grew, you started lifting weights, and you noticed that you started eating more so you could gain more muscle, and your thighs were bigger, but they were stronger and firm. And I think as other people, they look at us and don't see those changes. But for me, I think I've always been so aware of my body and aware of the changes that are happening, and probably not in the most positive way. I remember when I was in high school, so again, like freshman year, I feel like I slimmed down again, sophomore year, junior year. Well, junior year, then I felt like I had gained some weight. And so I was like, okay, before prom, I'm going to just start doing protein shakes and that'll be my lunch. And nothing really changed. I felt like I was at a point where like I could tweak things about my lifestyle or what I was eating, but nothing ultimately changed. And my body still looked the same. And that just felt really weird for me. And then I noticed as I got to my senior year, I lost some weight again. And I also did the Lift 4 program. It's through Beachbody, but now I think it's just called Body, BODI. And me and my mom did that the summer before I went to college. And I truly don't feel like I've ever felt as strong and comfortable in my skin that I did that summer before my freshman year of college. And again, like, yeah, I was exercising, but I was exercising all those other years. And so I want to reassure you that really you could be doing the right things. You could be doing everything correct. You could be not changing anything about your lifestyle, but your body might ultimately change. And that is something that I think we have to release the guilt or the shame around that and understand that we still can support our bodies, even if it's not at a stage or at a point where we love and adore it. And I think that's not really talked about very often, is the not loving your body piece, right? There's that whole movement that came with body positivity, and no matter what you look like, you're beautiful. And I don't disagree with that, right? But I think as women, if we then would say, well, I hate my body, or I hate this about my body, then we feel kind of ashamed because we're told that we should love our body at every stage it's at. But for me, that's not always been the case, in all transparency. Throughout different stages of my life, I've gone through so many cycles where I felt really good, really confident, really strong, and then I felt terrible in my skin and in my clothes, and my clothes felt uncomfortable. And then, I felt really good again, and then my clothes didn't feel right. And I think when this finally made sense to me on why my body is feeling differently even month to month, it's because that throughout your cycle, your menstrual cycle, your body is changing, and even the water retention or weight of your body is fluctuating. Your body can fluctuate from 5 to 10 pounds in one day, right? For most people, it's more like 1 to 5, but depending on the stage of your cycle. So, when you're on your period, your body is retaining a lot of water. You notice bloating. Your ovaries are swollen, right? Because you are shedding that uterine lining, and you are, not to get TMI for all the men listening, but I think they can handle it. But you're shedding that, and your body is bloated and uncomfortable and puffy, and your face might look swollen, and your arms feel chunky, and your midsection just is like so like you're pressing on it and it feels firm. But when you look in the mirror or from the side of your body, it's like, oh, like this, there's like a bump on my lower belly area. Again, that's not a bad thing. That's your body going through your menstrual period or your menstrual cycle, right? So you're going through that week where your body's going to feel more puffy, more swollen, and you're going to feel, hopefully not have cramping. That was a big thing for me, is understanding that cramping isn't normal. Being bedridden on your period isn't normal. And that when you actually add in those healthy fats in a balanced meal and a balanced plate, your body is able to respond to that stress and that inflammation a lot more seamlessly than if you're eating a diet that is high in inflammatory oils and sugars and colors and flavors. And so that's when it's like, okay, we got to look at our diet, but also understanding that no matter what you're eating, your body's going to go through that. Okay, then you enter that follicular phase that week after your period, and you're going to feel very toned. I remember when I exercised during this time of the month, it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm gaining so much muscle mass and I look strong and I feel strong. That's because your body should have the most energy at that time. So your body is going to be burning calories probably more efficiently. And so that's when you would add in like that HIIT training or running, because your body can properly respond to inflammation that comes through high intensity interval training, even through eating foods that aren't so great for you. Your body is a lot more resilient. And that's just because, again, your body it's absorbing less water. It feels tighter. Your skin feels tighter. And maybe you notice, yeah, like this is where I feel really good. Mentally, you might feel really, really clear. Oh, that is always the best stage for me. I just feel like even business-wise, it's like I've got all these ideas bouncing into my head and I'm inspired and I'm so motivated to do it. And then you enter that ovulation phase. And this is a phase where not much is changing for your body. That follicular phase is typically about 16 days. So lucky for us, a majority of the time we should be feeling really good, really strong. And then you enter ovulation. Your body and your ovary might puff up a little, so that lower belly area might be extended a little bit more. Maybe you notice your pants feel a little bit tighter. But outside of that, not too much is changing. And then you enter your luteal phase. And this is where your body is really craving rich, warm, comforting foods, because it knows the next cycle, or the next phase of your cycle, is going to be your period. And so your body can really burn 200 to 600 more calories during your luteal phase than it does at any other time in the month. So your body is kind of going into that protective state. You might notice some changes. You don't feel so comfortable. And I think so much of this has to go back to our mindset and our mental clarity and how we're feeling, right? So when you feel very stressed, very overwhelmed, that's typically in your luteal phase, and you want to just kind of eat anything that feels comfortable because it's a way for us to cope. Well, also linking those emotions to your body and how it's physically responding is another thing that for me was like such a big step in understanding why my body maybe looks differently throughout different stages of the month. And if you're somebody who doesn't overanalyze your body, I don't want this to be an episode where you start doing that. But for me, it's given me a lot more grace with my body and myself, because I know what stage I'm at and why or how my body is going to be responding. Same with how my mindset will be responding. Maybe even your body physically isn't changing at all. You're not really retaining any more water than you would be during that follicular phase when you feel the most lean and tight. But mentally, you are preparing for and it's not that your period is a traumatic time, but your body is going through a huge change in stress. And so even how you are thinking about it and thinking about yourself could be so impacted during that cycle or that stage as well. And so really just understanding, like, throughout your cycle, your body's also changing. And so we don't need to be so hard on ourselves. I saw this one photo and this just made me feel so comforted, because I was like, this isn't just a Bailey thing. This is a every woman that is going through her cycle thing. And it was this gal had taken a photo at the same time of the day every single day for an entire month. And she did it was in like the same location as well. So she did kind of a flip book style of just like went through all of it. So you could see her body change. And then it was just so fascinating. And I will try to link it in the show notes if I can find it. I know it was on TikTok, and maybe you know what I'm talking about, but it was so incredible to see how resilient our bodies are and how much they can adapt and change just throughout 28 days or however long your cycle is, that 28 to 31, 30-ish days. It was incredible. I'm like, we are so resilient and our body is so capable of adaptation, and we just don't give it enough credit. And I think that's where I was saying too, you don't have to love and adore your body at every stage of your life, but you do need to support it. So I'm not here to say you need to be body positive all the time, although that's probably always my goal. At least my goal is to make sure that your relationship with food isn't being affected even when your body is fluctuating, but that there's reasons that your body's fluctuating. And even if you think about after having a kid, that post childbirth, that can be a really difficult time for moms because their body is maybe looser, their skin is looser in areas that it wasn't before. The collagen in their skin has to be built up again, so things start to feel tight. But there's also pressure for your body to look perfect right after having a kid. And I can't speak from experience on that, but I've heard enough women talk about that and how some people, their bodies can just bounce back right away. And that's great for them. But for others, it takes a really, really long time, like 1 to 2 to 3 plus years. And I don't personally want to put a time limit on it because for everyone, it's going to look differently. But like, you just did an incredible thing, have a child, right? And it would be so sad to think that and I know this happens, but that we then feel so ashamed of our body after it just did something so miraculous, and even if you haven't had a kid and maybe you're going through like IVF or different forms of fertility treatments so you can hopefully conceive, your body is going to have to store extra fat in certain areas because that truthfully is what can help support a really healthy pregnancy. I've been reading the book Real Food for Fertility, and they talk so much about pregnancy and preparing your body for pregnancy, and even how, that weight will probably be in your hips. You might notice your hips drop and they get a little bit wider. And you notice that lower area of your stomach, no matter how many sets of abs you do, it's never going to look defined and chiseled because that's an area where we have to store more fat to protect our reproductive organs. And that's something men don't necessarily have to worry about, but us as women, the parts of our body that we've maybe been made to feel the most ashamed of are actually the most important. That lower belly area, those hips, right? Your frame, your structure, you need to have a structure and even if you don't plan on ever having kids, your body's naturally going to go through that because if you look back in the Bible, like women were created to be the ones to reproduce, right? And so even if your goal is not to have a child, your body is still going to experience that in most instances because that's just how female bodies were made to look. And I think until diet culture became so in our face and so obnoxious, if you look at photos of the ancient women, not ancient women, but you think back to like sculptures that artists would have done, and I can't even give you a timeline. I don't know that much about art or art history, but those women have curves and their hips are wide, and that was attractive to the male gaze. And not saying it isn't now. I mean, it is still now. That's still the case. But we went through a phase where you wanted to be stick thin because that was what we thought was attractive. And I think when we base our appearance off of what celebrity looks like or what somebody who is maybe, I don't know, at a different phase of their life, what they look like, maybe we want to mimic that. We have to understand that we're at a different age than them. We have different resources than they do. Even thinking of celebrities or getting work done, I'm not here to shame you if you've had work done, but you can make so many things change in your physical body by going through plastic surgery or doing different treatments. And so it's like, we also have to understand that what maybe that standard of what our body should look like has altered how we view our body. Our body is so resilient and powerful and strong, and that it needs to be supported, even though maybe for you, looking a certain way in your own skin feels the most comfortable. For somebody else, that might look different for them. And so understanding you both can be supporting your body, but your bodies will look totally different dependent on what you're eating or where you're living or what you have access to or if you're exercising. Like, we just can't always be in that comparison game of other people and comparing other people's bodies to what our body should look like. Because like I've said over and over again, your body will change throughout all stages of your life. Okay, so even people at your own age, so somebody else that's 24 like me, they could look completely different because we also genetically have things that just won't happen for us. You know, if you do a saliva test, I was talking to a client, she did a saliva test, and it was so specific that it even told her if she would ever have the genetics to be an Olympic athlete. And they said no, right? Her body would never have that genetic makeup to pack on muscle, to be quick and reactive, to be an athlete that is capable of entering the Olympics. And I thought that was so fascinating that it's gotten that specific based on your genetics. So then also her knowing that no matter how much she weight trained or how little she ate, her body wouldn't be jacked and chiseled at the same time because her genetics just didn't allow for that. And I was having this conversation with my mom and brother today, and my brother, although yes, we come from the same people, he can really get lean, he can put on weight, he can lose weight pretty quickly, and his goal is honestly to be gaining weight right now, while still being toned and defined and strong. And he has the frame to do that. And then my mom and I were talking, and I'm like, I really feel like I got much more similar genetics to my mom than my brother got from my dad. And so for me, no matter how much I weight lift and weight train, I just feel like I cannot put on muscle. And I was saying how I'd be so interested to work with a bodybuilder trainer, not to have the goal of being a bodybuilder, but to have the goal of building muscle that is defined, because I have so much knowledge and it feels like my body is just not capable of doing that. So I kind of want to test the boundaries to see the capability of your body based off of what you know is true about the genetics of your body. And I think the best way to know your genetics is either you can do genetic testing if you really want to get specific on what your body type is. It'll even tell you where you'll tend to store weight, what foods your body might be resistant to processing properly. You can really do that sort of testing. But I think that when we get to the end of it, you can do all that testing, whatever. When we get to the end of all of that, or when we really dive into all of those things, there's some basic things that you can be doing to support your body, even if your weight fluctuates and you don't know why. Doesn't mean we don't support it. So I'm going to give you a list of those things. All right, so the first one is to eat 3 balanced meals per day. These are going to seem very, very basic, but there's always ways you can get deeper into them, right? So 3 balanced meals per day. That is your baseline. That is what you can do to continue to support your body. So this also means you're not following every diet under the sun to try to get your body to change and look a different way without having a true understanding of how you should be fueling your body, right? So if you haven't, I would recommend listening to the Core 4 series I did, where I talk about what makes up a balanced plate. This is crucial because when you understand that food is healing, food is not intended to harm, that calories are not just a calorie, that calories are different based off of the quality of the calorie or the food, and that following every diet that you maybe, I think it's kind of like that shiny object syndrome of oh, Optivia, that looks great because they give you all the food you need to eat and you're supposed to lose weight. Okay, but what do they do about the long term getting off of that program? Because I've worked with many women that have done that program and gotten off of it, and then they gain the weight back, unfortunately, because they don't help you transition out of it. And you're also eating crappy quality food that makes you feel like turd, just because you want to lose a few extra pounds, right? And I'm very passionate about diets, and so I'm apologizing if it offends you that I'm so resistant to these diets, but I don't support them and I don't support what they preach to you. The low calorie diet, right? Okay, yeah, that's understandable, but what are your calories? You can go low calorie without neglecting your protein intake, right? Or the keto diet. Okay, well, yeah, you're eating a poop ton of protein, but you're also constipated because your body can't digest it all. And so we need to add in fiber. We need to add in fat. There are just so many diets. There's even more ridiculous diets out there that it's like we think that that'll be what changes our body to make us satisfied. But if you're not truly satisfied with your body and you're not passionate about taking care of your body, there will be no long-lasting change for you. And I really hope that sinks in, because I know that's a hard thing to hear. But if you are not satisfied with your body how it is right now, that doesn't mean you have to become complacent and just let, your body just like not maybe neglect your body. That doesn't mean that. But you have to at some point understand that you are going through different phases continuously. If it's not hitting puberty, then it's understanding how to support your menstrual cycle. If it's not that, it is conceiving a child and delivering that child and then having a body in a your body look a different way that you have to get used to supporting maybe in a different way. And then if you're not having kids, right? And that's not going to be the case for everyone. Not everybody's trajectory looks like this, but this is the cycle I've seen. Well, then when you're done having kids, you start taking care of your kids and you invest everything into them and you neglect your own self. So then your body changes then. And then you reach that point where you start going through menopause, and then that lasts for however long it does. And then post-menopause, you're like, well, now certain foods don't sit right and my digestive system seems a little messed up. Maybe by then you've had some surgeries or you've lost some strength. And again, your body changes. And our body is so resilient in the sense, like I keep saying, that it can withstand all those changes. But if you are not supporting it with fuel, first off, right? Eating balanced meals, your aging process, your health is going to deteriorate so much faster than if you supported your body through eating balanced plates, right? Ditching the diets that don't work long term or that don't really fit into a regular, real food diet, right? If you are eating a granola bar while everybody else in your family is eating a full meal that you've made for them, I think it's really hard to be satisfied with that granola bar when you would rather have that real food. And that's where I say eat the real food. So much better for you to eat the real food and learn how much of the real food that your body needs to feel supported versus trying out all these different pre-made food programs that are actually not going to produce a long-term result that you think you want, right? The second one is to move your body daily. And this is where this could look very different depending on which stage of life you're at. If you are an athlete, it's going to look way different. If you are older in age, it's going to look different. But moving your body and how your body physically responds is going to be a direct reflection of your physical goals. Okay, so an example comes to mind, I think, of my grandma. So she comes to exercise classes, and I won't say her name, or I won't say her age, but she is the oldest person there, and she can't get any friends to come with her because they all say they're way too old to go to exercise class. And the strength that I have seen her develop through coming to exercise classes 2 times a week is incredible, and it's so inspiring because she's been A, consistent, and B, she knows how much better she feels when she's strong. Getting up and down off the floor, doing yard work. She said, it's so much easier to do it now that my body is strong. So she's older in her age, right? But for a lot of her friends, it looks like maybe not being that active. Or maybe for you, it's like, well, I don't really love strength training. Then you go out for a walk and you walk or you bike ride. And I don't think that you'll maybe see that muscle definition if that's a goal of yours through walking or biking. But it's still keeping you healthy. It's still supporting your body through all phases of your life. Okay? For me, it's strength training. I want to get strong. I want to build muscle. I want to see definition. That is a goal of mine. That doesn't mean it has to be a goal of yours, but that's a goal of mine. So I know in order to see the physical result of that, I need to be moving my body by strength training and doing walking. I need to go for walks or go for runs a couple days a week because I want to build strength, but not feel like I have water retention or that I'm puffy. And I also don't want to limit or kind of remove the ability to gain muscle because I'm running so much. Like last summer, I was training for a half marathon, so I ran more and I lifted less. Now in this phase of my life, I'm lifting more, strengthening my body more, and I'm running less. So it just, again, it's dependent, but throughout whatever cycle it is, you have to find movement that you can add in that you're going to enjoy that supports your body regardless of the phase of life. Number 3 is to drink enough water to support your organs. Okay. If you want plump, firm skin, if you want to not have headaches and not feel like you're always craving things, you need to be properly hydrating your body. I always say start with 1 ounce per pound body weight. With one-on-one clients, we do the math to get that specific number of how much you need and then divide it by the water bottle that you drink your water out of most often. So this can be very specific, but if you want that general rule of thumb, 1 ounce per pound body weight is the goal. That's going to feel like a lot of water. So start where you feel comfortable and then gradually add in more as you can. Okay. Number 4 is to prioritize sleep. So I've talked a little bit about sleep in the past, but women really need 9 to 10 hours of sleep. The studies that have been done in the past to really help decide how much sleep we as humans need was mostly done on men. And so it kind of totally threw out the the gender difference that comes between men and women based off of, the different cycles that women's body are going through, or that just like maybe the emotional stress or physical stress on your body during different phases. So really women need that 9 to 10 hours. Men, you'd be great with the 6 to 7 or less. But of course, this is also body specific. So I can't ever just give like a generalized, like you should do this and you'll be great, because some people actually function a lot better with 7 hours. I've had some clients who are like 10 is too much and I don't want to wake up. Whereas like doing a little bit less gets them out of bed earlier. So understanding again what your body needs. Number 5 is to manage your stress and utilize tools to reduce it. And I would say this should really become first. With all of the work I do in either group coaching or one-on-one, we talk about the mindset first because that is the most important. Like I've been saying, if you're not satisfied with your body ever, you never will be. Okay? So we need to be thinking about how we can change that mindset so that even if you don't look in the mirror and think, oh, I'm just the most incredible person ever, which I would hope you would feel that way, right? But if you don't, it's like you don't have to feel that way, but you could at least respect and honor your body where it's at and appreciate what it's doing for you. And so that's where that mindset comes in. So either doing therapy or identifying trauma or shame and that you're holding on to, right? If there's shame around food and eating enough food to feel actually good, if that feels uncomfortable for you, you need to dig into that. You need to dive deeper into why you feel that way. Or certain areas of your body, if they're always the parts causing you stress, right? So if it's your liver that always is having issues and you're having a hard time detoxifying, and that you notice you look much more puffy on some days than others and swollen, we need to talk about what that resentment and anger is that you're holding in your liver that is causing your body to not be able to properly detoxify, right? To get it out of your system. You have to get to the stem of what's going on in your body. And stress can manifest in so many different ways, especially through physical ailments. And so we need to identify how you can cope and move through that. Deep breathing is another way. Red light therapy is one that can be so great to help your body unwind at night, getting off of your phone, TV, computer, and just unwinding. Brain dumping before bed to stop those racing thoughts. And then if you wake up in the middle of the night, using that journal again to brain dump. I think there's nothing worse than waking up in the middle of the night and remembering something that you didn't do that you needed to do. And you wake up in a panic and your heart is racing and cortisol is spiked. And then it's so hard to get back to bed. Okay, so having that with you so you can write those things down that wake you up, knowing that, okay, when I wake up in the morning, I won't forget these things because they're written out. All right, the other one was be identifying triggers. So what is triggering your stress? Is it your job? Is it a family situation? Is it a friend situation? Is it something that happened years and years ago that you're still holding on to? Again, that's when you would utilize therapy or working with a coach or specialist to help you work through those things. And then finally, I would always say ending with the supplementation or herbs and adaptogens to support your body through stress, right? There's so much more mental that we need to work on before we think about the physical adaptation with adding in food and herbs and supplements. But if you are somebody who has tried everything under the sun, you feel like your stress is pretty managed, but you need some more support, that's when adding in any fresh herbs is going to be great. I take the Daily Stress Plus supplement by Pure Encapsulations. I also take a beef organ supplement. Both of those seem to really help because with the Daily Stress Plus, there's factors like chamomile and magnesium that really help my body unwind on those days when I'm feeling extra stress. Tea is another one. I got a traditional Chinese medicine-based tea from Tizan, I believe is how you pronounce it. And I'll be posting about that here in the next week, but I have really loved utilizing that. It actually tastes good, but they use a different herb blend to help with your body's stress response. So it lowers your blood pressure, lowers your heart rate through just a mix of different herb blends. And they've got some for all different phases that you're in or all different stages you're in. So maybe you don't need stress, you need energy support. They have different tea blends for that. So I've really also enjoyed that. And then of course, food to support and heal, which all ties back to that eating 3 or more meals per day. As you get further along in your health journey, you might notice, hey, I want like specific calculations for protein and to better understand how I can track that. Or again, that water goal. And that's again what I do with clients one-on-one. I've also added in different blood work and getting that tested to see what supplements your body actually needs, which I've been utilizing other people to do that because I'm not certified, but to give us that foundational knowledge of where your body needs extra support based off of where there's a deficit. And that can be a huge piece of the puzzle that we often neglect. Okay, so I know this is a lot and you might be feeling overwhelmed, but I would encourage you to pick one thing, out of the 5 that you can add in right now to help support your body through the stage that it's at. Okay. And of course, if you need extra support for this, I offer one-on-one coaching, which I think is so incredible because it gives you somebody to support you along the way, and to work on that relationship with food and your mindset and your stress levels, which I think is just something that we could maybe claim to do on our own or try to do on our own, but it's just not always possible. It's just life gets in the way, right? And if we keep pushing things off because, life is happening, you're busy, I think it'll be hard to ever get to actually truly supporting your body through every stage and every change that you notice it goes through, right? So to kind of like wrap this in a perfect little bow, our bodies are strong, our bodies are resilient. Our bodies are able to adapt to stress and different health struggles that we're going through, and that's incredible, right? But we can't just rely on our body to do all the work without putting in some extra work on our own, right? And that is where that support needs to come in so that your body doesn't have to work so hard to keep things functioning how you want them to if you're not putting in that effort. And that is just so, so important. And I just truly cannot stress that enough. I think you've kind of gotten the point. But also even just a final reflection for my own self is just that reminder that it's okay for your body to change. And when you notice you're really struggling with where your body's maybe at physically, is to remember all of the things that it's done for you in your entire lifetime, right? So if I think back for me, thinking about healing from chronic pain, low back pain, having 2 fractured vertebrae and a bulging disc, and living pain-free right now, why wouldn't I want to continue to strengthen my muscles to support my body so I no longer have to endure the pain that I did for so long, right? Or I think about even how your body is able to be a small little child in your mother's belly, and now you are what you are right now. Like, that has to blow your mind. Like, God is so deeply working, and he is such a huge piece on why our bodies are so adaptable and able to grow and develop the way they do. And we just can't forget that, because I could almost guarantee everyone who is listening to this has been through something that they really didn't think their body would be able to get through. Right? So I want you to take some time to really reflect on that. Reflect on all of the things that it's done for you, and understand that your body has been able to make it through those things. So we can't continue to look at our body and shame our body and be frustrated with our body as it's changing, because it's going to do that. And we have to just understand it will do that. As we age, our body will change. But what you can do and the control that you have is how you continue to support it. All right. I know this might have been heavy. This might have been a lot for you to think about and reflect on, but I really hope that you leave feeling encouraged and inspired, as always, to start integrating all of this, not even all of this, one new thing into your lifestyle, and just seeing how your body responds in such a positive way. All right, so with that, we're going to go ahead and close today's episode in prayer. So dear Lord, I just pray for whoever is listening to this episode, and that they just feel such gratitude for their body and the vessel that you've given them here on earth to live out their unique purpose. That they don't underestimate the power and the strength and the resilience that it has to get through whatever it is that they're struggling with, or that they're concerned about, or that they're maybe just not even happy about. I pray that they continue, or that they begin to nourish their body, to move their body, to honor their body with sleep, to pursue those relationships to support their body, and to really just do that deep inner work that needs to happen to fully find that appreciation for this vessel. Lord, I also pray for those hurting right now, that there's joy to be found in the hurt that they're feeling, and that they just truly lean on you in this time, even though it can be so hard to do, and that they just continue to pursue you and communicate with you to work through all of the struggles that they're facing that we don't even know. And I just ask that those come to light and that they feel comforted. I also pray for those war-torn areas like Gaza and the leaders of these countries. I just pray that they start leading with peace and with the desire to protect their nation with empathy and honor, not such corruption and violence that we just see so frequently. I just pray that the conflict stops, and that those in these areas of the most violence and war get to experience peace in just the most incredible way, through that deep relationship and comfort that comes only from knowing you. And that those who are leading these lives of violence are hit with just a surge of your love, and that they just turn their lives over to you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. I know that's a heavy note to end on, but with that, I really just wish you the best week ahead. I am here for you always. If there's anything you ever need to talk about, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can find me at Nourish with Bailey on Instagram, Bailey Seaton on Facebook, and almost everywhere else. I truly want to hear from you, so if you ever need somebody to support you along the way, please know that I am here. So with that, I will talk to you again next Wednesday. Bye.